The music echoed through the school gym like a fragile promise, trembling under the weight of expectations it couldn't fulfill. Glittering lights hung above, decorations shimmered against the walls, and the annual winter dance buzzed with bright teenage energy. But amid all the noise, color, and laughter, one corner stood frozen in quiet loneliness. A little girl in a wheelchair, wearing a soft blue dress and an anxious smile, watched the others dance as if she were watching a world she wasn't allowed to enter. Everyone brushed past her gently but dismissively, like she was a piece of furniture rather than a person. And in the shadows, sweeping confetti from the floor, was a man few noticed, an exhausted single-dad janitor named Ethan. No one knew that the moment he walked toward the girl, the entire night, perhaps their entire lives, was about to change forever. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of humanity, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It truly helps stories like this reach more hearts. Ethan never planned to be working late that night. But bills didn't care about plans, and his daughter Lily needed medication he could barely afford. Life had taken more from him than he could ever list. His wife, his stable job, his peace, but he had promised himself he would never let it take his kindness. Even when he felt invisible, even when the world treated him like a background character, he held on to the belief that small acts mattered. And that belief sparked the moment he noticed the girl, her trembling hands resting on her wheelchair, her desperate gaze lingering on the dancers like she wished she could disappear rather than sit alone another minute. He kept sweeping. He tried to ignore it. It wasn't his place to interfere, but the way the lights glimmered against her eyes, both hopeful and hurting, pulled him like gravity. He recognized that loneliness. He had seen it too often in Lily's eyes after her mother died. He knew what it felt like to watch others move forward while you remained stuck, left behind not because of your fault, but because life wasn't fair. The girl looked down at her lap, pretending to adjust her dress. But Ethan saw the small jerk of her chin, the tightening of her jaw, the way she blinked too fast. She was seconds from crying. Something inside Ethan broke. He set his broom aside, wiped his hands on his worn uniform pants, and walked toward her with the kind of gentle uncertainty only a man who has lost much can carry. She looked up in surprise, her large eyes widening as if she'd been caught in a dream she wasn't allowed to have. Ethan didn't ask. He simply bowed slightly, offering his hand with an awkward, warm smile, the kind that had comforted Lily through countless hospital nights. The girl hesitated, staring at him as if trying to understand why someone like him would notice someone like her. Then, cautiously, she placed her trembling hand in his. He didn't lift her out of the chair. He knew better. Instead, he stepped behind her and gently guided her wheelchair toward the center of the floor, leading her across the gym in soft, careful motions in rhythm to the music. Her face transformed right before him, first shock, then disbelief, and finally a joy so raw it made Ethan's throat tighten. She spread her arms slightly, as if pretending she were floating like the other dancers, and he spun her carefully, making her laugh, making her feel weightless. No one else had bothered. No one else had even seen her. But someone was seeing them now. Against the far wall, almost blending with the decor, a tall, elegant woman stood frozen. Her eyes locked onto Ethan and her daughter. Her expensive coat held snowflakes that refused to melt, and her expression was unreadable, somewhere between ache and awe. She hadn't expected to find her daughter Mia sitting alone and ignored at yet another school event. She hadn't expected to be late again because of a last-minute emergency at her corporation, and she certainly hadn't expected to find a janitor. Not a teacher, not a student, not a volunteer, giving her child the moment she never could. Her heart clenched with guilt. Mia had been paralyzed from the waist down after a car accident 2 years earlier. Since then, the billionaire CEO, Isabella Hartwell, had thrown money, specialists, therapies, and treatments at the situation, trying to fix everything with the same force that built her empire. But money couldn't fix loneliness. Power couldn't stop the sting of exclusion. And nothing she'd done had ever made Mia smile the way she was smiling now. Ethan had no idea the woman was there. No idea he was dancing in front of one of the wealthiest, most influential women in the city. All he knew was that a child needed kindness, and he had enough left in him to give it. As the song softened, Ethan gently slowed to a stop. The girl's cheeks glowed, her eyes shimmering with quiet gratitude he felt deep in his bones. He offered her a small bow, and she pressed her hands to her face, overwhelmed. Ethan stepped back, intending to return to his broom before anyone noticed him, but when he turned, he froze. The billionaire mother was standing right in front of him. For a split second, fear shot through him. Fear of losing his job, fear of having unknowingly broken some rule, fear that kindness once again would cost him more than he had. But the woman's expression wasn't angry. It was something softer, something vulnerable, something human. She approached him slowly, hesitantly, like someone carrying a lifetime of unspoken apologies. Her eyes flicked to her daughter, still glowing with happiness, and then back to Ethan. She recognized him as the janitor she'd passed countless times without really seeing. She'd always been too busy, too stressed, too important to notice people in uniforms. But tonight, he had done something she could never repay. Ethan nodded respectfully and stepped aside to let her reach Mia. He returned to cleaning, trying to pretend everything was normal. But Isabella couldn't focus on anything but the man who had just changed, her daughter's night, and maybe her life, with nothing more than compassion. The following days brought a shift Ethan didn't expect. When he arrived at work, teachers greeted him with unusual warmth. The principal called him into the office, not to reprimand him, but to praise him. Someone had anonymously donated a large sum to the school in honor of kindness shown by staff. Ethan didn't understand until he saw Isabella Hartwell walking across the school courtyard, dressed simply, holding 2 cups of coffee and smiling nervously. She asked to speak with him privately. Ethan's heart pounded. He had never been in the presence of a billionaire, and certainly not one thanking him for something he thought anyone would have done. But she wasn't thanking him with the polished, rehearsed tone of a CEO. She was thanking him like a mother who'd seen a stranger heal a wound she hadn't known how to reach. She asked about his daughter, about his life. And he told her, the struggles, the late nights, the grief, the bills, the endless attempts to give his child the stability she deserved. Isabella listened, not as someone above him, but as someone beside him. For the first time in a long time, Ethan felt seen. Days turned into weeks, and a quiet friendship formed. Isabella visited the school more often, spending time with Mia and sometimes lingering in the halls just to say hello to Ethan. She admired his humility, his work ethic, his warmth. Ethan admired her strength, her vulnerability beneath the surface, her fierce love for her daughter. Lily and Mia became fast friends, bonding over art projects and shared hardships. Slowly, their families intertwined in ways none of them expected. But life wasn't done testing Ethan. One night, Lily had a severe asthma attack. Ethan rushed her to the hospital, panicked, terrified, praying she would breathe again. The medical bills threatened to crush him, and he silently cursed himself for not being able to give her more. When Isabella arrived at the hospital after hearing from Mia, Ethan expected pity. Instead, she showed up as someone who refused to let him face this alone. She held his shaking hands, spoke to the doctors, arranged everything without taking away his dignity. She didn't offer charity, she offered partnership. For Ethan, accepting help was harder than any poverty he had faced, but Isabella's kindness wasn't loud or flashy. It was steady, soft, and sincere. Their lives slowly began to braid together, 2 wounded parents carrying different burdens but finding strength in each other. Ethan helped Mia regain confidence. Isabella ensured Lily received proper medical care. They shared dinners, laughter, and moments of hopeful silence. What began as a dance at a school eventually became the dance of 2 families healing together. Months later, during another school event, a special presentation was announced. The gym, decorated under the same lights as that first night, filled with students and parents. The principal called Ethan forward. Nervous, confused, he wiped his hands on his uniform and approached the stage. Isabella and Mia waited there, smiling warmly. The school awarded him a community hero recognition, but the real surprise came next. Isabella announced the creation of a new program, a scholarship fund for children with disabilities, and a new position at her company for Ethan, one with fair pay, benefits, and dignity. Ethan fought tears as the applause surrounded him. He had spent years feeling invisible, but now, because of one small act of kindness, the world finally saw him. As the event ended, the music returned. Mia approached Ethan again, dressed in a shimmering dress, her hands steady this time, her eyes bright with confidence. She asked him for another dance, not because she needed someone to include her, but because he had helped her believe she deserved to belong. Ethan took her hands. They danced again, this time not because she was alone, but because she wasn't anymore. And Isabella watched from nearby, her heart full, knowing that the janitor who had changed her daughter's night had also changed their whole future. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe so more people can experience these emotional journeys. Your support truly keeps these stories alive. Special request, comment below what part of this story moved you the most. And so, under lights that once illuminated loneliness, 2 families found hope, healing, and a future woven together by a single act of kindness. A dance that changed everything.